Referees. We had a case of mistaken identity a week ago. We had fouls that should never have been a red card given as a red, and we had career-ending challenges not even penalised by the referees the past week of the Indian Super League. Hi, I'm Shreyas, and welcome to another edition of our weekly recap of the Indian Super League. We're in week 3, and I'm proud to say I'm joined by Dibyadeep, and for whom last night was finally some joy for East Bengal.
You can't say it was so much joyous because the game was extremely bad in my opinion. I don't think either of the sides settled into the game, and a lot of the brunt of it should be bared by the referee again. I think there was some ridiculous calls. Referee being scared to give a foul, sometimes giving fouls on very cheap challenges. So very inconsistent throughout the game, and that kind of infuriated both the managers on either side and the players itself. And this is a recurring trend that we are seeing each match, because in the first week we kind of appreciated the referees being able to hold their own without the crowd effect. They were more imposing on the game, but as we have gone on in the second week and the third week, we've just seen the level of refereeing being extremely horrendous. I think it just has deteriorated.
Yeah, indeed. And there are no excuse for referees right now on a week that has actually given us more of a case to kind of bash them and show or call them out, really. But welcome to Floodlight Robbery, where we're going to discuss how referees still haven't learned from their past mistakes, and also talking about a few players that have caught the limelight this week, apart from being a consistent performer over the past few seasons. And we also look at Bengaluru FC struggles in creating chances from open play. Of course, if you haven't subscribed or followed us yet, please do take out your time to make sure that you follow us on all our social channels. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and if you want to listen to us on Spotify, please subscribe. So without further ado, let's kick on. So the referees, we've had so many incidents over the years that have been quite hilarious, to be honest. You know, we had penalties given for fouls outside the box. We had handballs given for balls for plays where the ball touched the top of the shoulder. We've had wrong players being sent off. We've had kerfuffles on the touchline which haven't been penalised. Where does this end now? Where is the ending point or the tipping point for the ISL to realise that the referees are just a joke?
I think, it begs the question that we always keep saying that referees are also human. They are susceptible to the odd mistake. But this is something that we have been saying since the start of the ISL, and it's been quite a few seasons since then. And a lot of games were refereed by foreign referees. But now that the fact that a lot of Indian referees are being entrusted upon to be in charge of the games, I think the question is even more pertinent, because the level of the Indian referees just haven't improved, and this goes on from the I-League to the ISL also, and this is costing teams, because bad refereeing can change games and define seasons. I think last season Jorge Costa, Mumbai City's coach, complained of when one of his players was brought down by the Chennaiyin goalkeeper right outside the box, and a clear goal scoring opportunity being denied, as we all know, should be a direct red, and the keeper wasn't sent off. And minutes later, a Mumbai City player, Saurav Das, got sent off, and they ended up losing the game. So refereeing decisions define games and seasons, and it kind of defines the mood of the game also. A referee being inconsistent makes teams become very rash in the way that they go on about the game. The game starts losing control, and when the game starts losing control, we stop playing football, we start doing something else, and it's just a question that needs to be attended to as quickly as possible, but I'm not sure how.
Coach, do you think your team was unlucky with some on-field decisions?
We cannot talk the unlucky. This word unlucky, it's very nice, we have to talk clear text, this was very, 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 very bad decisions made, which one cost us definitely the minimum 1 point.
Well, there's Chaba Laszlo's quotes after the game. Chennai, of course, dropped points against Mumbai City, who you might say were very, very lucky in that sense to get the favourable calls from the referee. On the night, it was Ajit Kumar Mehte who was the referee, and I think it was shocking to me after the game when I checked up on his background that he's won the AFF Referee of the Year last season for 1920. When you have a referee of supposedly the highest standard of Indian football committing errors like we saw in that game, we saw Amir Juhu get lucky for two penalty shots that should have been nailed on penalties really, and he was even lucky to stay on the pitch, and so was Eli Sabia from Chennaiyin FC. When you have so many calls going against one particular team, and it's something of a recurring trend in the game, like you said, it changes the whole complexion of the game. Suddenly a team just feels aggrieved. They just feel like everything's going against them, so they kind of try and harder, and mistakes creep in. We saw Vishal Keth making the most high-profile mistake of the game that led to Mumbai City winning the game. Where do you stand on Indian referees and how they've not really improved over the 5 or 6 years that the ISL's been in existence?
I mean, we look outside India and we see these refereeing programs happening from FIFA, from UEFA. Do you know of any in India as such where referees get educated, where referees have a chance to improve the game?
In fact, there's actually there's a dearth of opportunities, first of all, and secondly, there's no real awareness for referees, isn't there? I mean, you see referees in Europe and maybe around the world who are part-time working somewhere else, and have the chance to maybe work in the summers or learn a lot about refereeing as a profession, get better opportunities. But yeah, like it's just non-existent in India.
So I think that's one big reason why referees, their level either stays where they are or just keeps dropping, because without the opportunity to polish themselves, to learn of other referees, I think the level is you can't expect the level of referees, because as we see the intensity of the game just keeps on in the ISL is getting better, which means the referees have to be very prompt about the decision making, because they have to keep up with the game, right?
No, but how can you argue that the level should be there? These referees are FIFA accredited, and by being FIFA accredited, you expect a similar level to the international referees who are also FIFA accredited. Technically, these refs could be, employed in the FIFA World Cup, and they should be performing at that level without, high-profile mistakes.
I think it's that bigger question that just because you have a license does not mean you're very good at it. It just means that you're certified to do it.
Well, is the license a flaw then? Is there a huge flaw in the way that FIFA gives out FIFA accredited license to referees?
That's perhaps something that needs to be backed up with a lot of numbers, comparison on performances and everything. But yeah, just like you said, I mean, Amajau, escaping a lot of these challenges that should have been booked, has made him the highest tackler in the league with 36 tackles. So I think there are some problems like that, and that needs to be attended to, because as of now, I think the managers are getting very irritated by the way the referees are performing, and we've seen that in Gerard Noose, we've seen that in the Robbie Fowler this season, and I think even if this keeps on going on, then I think there might be just a big fight that's looming ahead.
Well, you did mention Robbie Fowler, and one who has obviously vented his frustrations over the referees last week when East Bengal dropped points for the third time in a row and lost the third game in a row. He said that the referees are always against us. We get none of the calls, and he kind of reiterated that fact, even though although they were down to 10 men and commendably held on for the first point in the Indian Super League yesterday with a 0-0 draw against Jamshedpur. You can understand his frustration, because Eugenson Ligno, you can argue, probably deserved a yellow, but his second challenge that got him sent off was, I mean, you can't even think about giving a second yellow. I mean, you could probably think of giving a yellow, but not a second yellow. And obviously, when they were down to 10 men for 2/3 of the game, it was a difficult task. And at the end, again, referee coming up with another red card, this time for Dibyadeep for, I think, what was a mistake on his half. But immediately after the challenge, it was funny to see the referee did not know that Dibyadeep was already on a yellow card. And it was almost like the fourth official had to remind him that Dibyadeep had to be sent off. So, I mean, a comedy of errors is what you can describe the whole incident as and the whole game as. And I think on the back of these two games, it can only get worse from here, because we said in the first episode and the second episode that we expect the referees to be performing better than they have the last few years. And even after the first week, we got a bit carried away. We said they have improved. But, I mean, clearly, if this is the case, where do teams kind of seek redressal from these, grievances? Because it is going to plague these teams over the course of the season. We are going to see teams that are actually robbed of points. So where does it go on from here? Is there a way that teams can probably go and appeal to a certain panel to get decisions punished retrospectively? We saw first in the Indian Super League history when Len Dungal got a retrospective red card or a match ban. Is there a way that you could probably punish people like Ahmed Jahu in the future?
As retrospective punishments, maybe there is a panel that can be appealed to, but from the point of view of changing the standards of refereeing, I think that's something for the next season. I think there comes a point when coaches keep on telling their players that just go on to the game thinking the referee is going to go against you, and I think that's the kind of mentality that some teams will just start applying to their game, because it's nothing unusual for a manager, for a team to expect the referee being against them, even if that's not outrightly something that is happening. Maybe it's just something being very very coincidental that the referee's decisions are going against one team, but it's something that the teams should be considering, because at this point in time, if they keep their focus and their faith into the referee to make the right calls, I think they're just bound to lose points.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to end off this argument with saying that FSDL promotes the league, and of course it should, as the fourth most watched league in the world. And obviously it's because of the population, the numbers that are kind of growing towards the attractiveness of football in the country. But I mean, obviously, if you're the fourth most watched league, eventually there will come a point where you are the most criticized league in the world, one of the most criticized leagues in the world, and to have the standard is just appalling. So I think in due course, or when the fans are back, of course, in stadiums, you will see a lot of stick being thrown to the referees. I think they're very fortunate that they're not playing in the Salt Lake this year, because I'm pretty sure, from 10 years ago, when a rocket was thrown at the referee, you can imagine what the scenes would be right now if a call went against East Bengal. So a lot of work there for FSTL if they want to really prove and cement their spot as the fourth best league in the world. Moving on then to a few players that have actually caught the eye over the past few years, and a couple of Indians who've really kind of shown some promise that has got a lot of praise from coaches and fans alike. Firstly, I want to come on to Brandon Fernandes. Juan Ferrando, the FC Goa coach, referred to him as a foreign player. He was almost as good as a foreign player when he thinks about picking his team. Now, obviously, we know Brandon is a fantastic player, and he's probably a unique player in Indian terms because he does things that not many Indian players are able to do. But why would you think that Juan Ferrando gives him such big praise, considering that he's not really a first-team regular for the Indian national team?
I think he kind of fits the way Juan Fernando wants to play. But something that's very evident right now because he hasn't used the Brandon in the whole 90 minutes as much as he would like to, because if you I think he's more of an impact player that can be very useful in that phase of 15-20 minutes, a half an hour, or one half for that matter. He can change the game. He can change the pace of the game. He brings a lot of energy, brings those incisive passes between the lines that the FC Goa like to play with. So and with Dibyadeep next to him, I think that's something that extremely useful, because Dibyadeep is the second most. He has the second most passes in the league. So I think Brandon brings a lot of a new dimension into the game, which is what Juan Fernando likes, and something that even Igor Stimac should be looking at, because he was very out of sorts with how to use Brandon, playing him on the left, playing him as a number 6. So it's good for Brandon that he's getting the minutes and getting the appreciation that is going to give him a lot of confidence. And I think that's something that Brandon should be feeding off from and going onwards and upwards from here on.
Yeah, I think he's a very special player to watch, but of course he fits that certain style of play. I'm pretty sure you stick him at a club like Northeast, he probably wouldn't be as effective. I don't think he's a player that could fit the national team under Igor Stimac, simply because when you're going up against teams that probably like to have the ball a bit more than India, it is going to be difficult when Brandon only has a limited number of touches in the game to kind of impact the game. And we saw that in the brief time that he had with the national team in the Cup in Thailand. But a fantastic player to watch. Finally gets some praise from a coach that puts him very highly amongst some of the Indian players out there. Another player that has got the exposure really, but has failed to deliver on the promises, Lalinswala Changte. Now, we remember 6 years ago when he scored that wonder goal in the, I forgot which cup it is, but in I think it was in Kerala, one of the cups. And I think it was SAF Cup. And he scored a beautiful curler, and everyone thought that he was the next big thing. Now, he has frightening pace. He gets into brilliant positions. And he's a dream for any manager in the Indian Super League because he's a nailed-on starter for any team in this league. But the biggest critic of him has been the fact that his end product is almost non-existent. Be it a cross, be it a pass, be it a shot, he just does not make the right decisions at the right time. So on that note, when we saw his assist against Mumbai City, where he took the ball up near the halfway line and dribbled past 3 or 4 defenders and got to the byline and cut it back to Sylvester for the goal, you have to say that it was a refreshing sight to see that he's actually performing to a level where Shaba Laszlo can depend on him for goals and assists.
Yeah, Lalinswala Changte, one more player that deserves a lot of recognition because of his talent, and I think has been inconsistent with his end product in the end because he's something that coaches recognize because he's fast. The pace is, as a winger, is extremely essential. He's got the trickery, he's got the positioning sense, and I think he's got everything in his artillery. Just that end product that he's been missing. But in the last game, as we all saw, Chennai extremely fluid in their attacking transition, creating chances at will, and extremely unlucky for the fact that they could not equalize, even with the referee being extremely unfair to them. And this is one more player I think that India has in the same mold as Brandon, because somehow Changte doesn't perform at the national level with the consistency that he's expected to do. And that same mold of players that has a lot of talent in the way that India wants to play. The Rainier and the Brandons and the Changtes and the Sahals, they kind of play the same way with looking to play more with the ball, very incisive with their with the way that they play. But Changte has been inconsistent, and do you think he can keep it up? And do you think there's something that the coach has to focus on that makes Changte tick?
Yeah, you said right there, the transition and knowing where to be when the ball is played and what to do after he gets the ball. We saw the first few games, I think the first couple of games, the whole squad needed some bedding in, and that's expected considering they had only 2 weeks of preseason. But we saw in the Mumbai City game, Chaba Laszlo came with a brilliant game plan that would have worked if the referee had an agenda against them. And a part of the game plan was having Changte receive the ball in attacking areas and feed Sylvester and Criverero. And what we saw was that he more often than not kind of picked his man. It was more Sylvester letting the team down than Changte, which is quite good to see because he's finally getting in tune with what the manager wants. Something we did see briefly when Owen Coyle was his manager last season. So I think the numbers are important. We talk about how numbers aren't important for some players and for some it is more important. And I think for Changte, it's definitely important because that's the only thing holding him back. And say he gets 5 goals and 5 assists this season, anything upwards of that number is a good return on a player that should be in the first 11 for the national team going forward. But the game itself, it did create a lot of controversy, of course. But you have to say, the final chance when Sylvester got a header in the 93rd minute in stoppage time and plays it right over the bar. I mean, the finest of margins, really. It kind of summed up the night, Chennai. It was so close yet so far. So how do you see that game playing out? And was it one of the luckiest victories Mumbai City will ever have this season?
I think Mumbai City, absolutely. I think with all the quality that they have, I think this is one of the Mumbai City's steals. It's a steal 3 points of Chennai, and because this is one game where I think they could have just lost. Even after the referee's blunders, I think Chennai had enough chances to equalize and get one more, but just the nerves, they couldn't hold on to the nerves when they needed to be, and it needed to be. But I think this is also a turning point for Chennai in that sense, because I believe they would kick on from here on and play the kind of football that they want to play, because they have been in the shadows, and we have seen that impact the league table as such, because there's a top half and the bottom half being created in that sense. But I think for Chennai, I think there's a lot of more positives to take than for Mumbai, except for the points. But I think Sergio Lobera is going to take those 3 points and then work on the negatives later on. But for Chennai, there are some positives to take, and I think that's something that they should look to, because it's still early stages in the tournament. I think there's a lot of more games to play out. So this is not something that hopefully they'll look back and regret, because you never know. Those 2 points, those 3 points that they have lost might just be the factor between them qualifying for the playoffs or not.
Arguably, and probably, he could actually be the number one or the best holding midfielder this season. Kasa Kamara for Northeast United, who plays in that sweeping role where he connects the play between the defense and the attack when they're building play, and also breaks up attacks brilliantly, especially considering their style of play where they're kind of sitting back and kind of inviting pressure and trying to snuff out attacks while also looking for the counter-attacking opportunity. I think Kasa Kamara has been a great addition to Northeast United. And we saw that firsthand, against Bengaluru FC, how instrumental he was in making sure that the scoreline stayed within Northeast reach. And what do you have to say about him? And still only 28, really. Does he have a few more years in India?
Maybe so, because I disagree with you on the fact that he's the best defensive midfield right now. But I think he's up there. He's definitely up there in terms of his stats. Also, he's extremely up there, because he's the third on the most tackles. The most tackles that a player has made. In the company of Carl McHugh and Ahmed Jau, I think, and those two players are rated extremely highly.
Yeah, but what separates him is the fact that he can play on the ball, and he's so technically well gifted that he can even carry the ball, he can pass the ball, he can break up play, he can win headers, he's physical. I think they're all
Yeah, absolutely, and it complements the team like Northeast, who are extremely direct, because I think Northeast is the team that has the least passes they've kind of made between themselves, but has the highest number of goals scored in the league. So for somebody like him, he's not only just a good defensive midfield. I think he's a leader in the side. That the coach has put out a lot of responsibility into young players. Young players like Ninthoy playing on the wings. There are a lot of young Indian players who the coach has put out responsibility, and they need leaders around them. And I think Kasa Kamara is somebody like that. So I definitely see him being in India for a few more seasons, because he's got the right attitude, right qualities to play in the center of midfield. I think it's a very good asset for Gerard Noose in the way that he wants to play, because we all have been extremely amazed by the way he has gone about Northeast, haven't we?
Yeah, I think the character within the team, you mentioned leadership, and I think they have so many leaders, although they have a mix of youth and experience, that they were never faced really by Bengaluru going up twice in the game. It was they were always pegging them back. They were always in the game. Machado had a fantastic game. I think his first true arrival in India, really, his best performance so far of the season. But I think the game brought more questions upon BFC than Northeast United. I think Northeast United would feel like it's a win, really, getting a point from that game, while Bengaluru would probably feel like they've dropped 3 points, really, although they've gained one. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I think it's fair to say that Bengaluru have failed to deliver so far. There's nothing really that suggests that they've rectified the problems that they've faced the last year or so, which is mostly creating chances from open play. They're still reliant a lot on set pieces. So how does Carlos Cuadrat and his coaching staff really rectify this problem that has just plagued the team for so long now?
I think Carlos, I personally, I really am very disappointed with Bengaluru. I was looking forward to watching Bengaluru play, because they come with a reputation, and there are so many good players in the squad. I mean, they're not short on quality by any means, but right now they just look extremely devoid of ideas. They look extremely, they're kind of clueless about the kind of football they want to play, because I think the way Carlos wants to play is something he's trying to implement something new, but it's clearly not working out, because they've made 1,600 passes in up till now, and that's around 1,500 lesser than the best team in the league, that's Mumbai City up till now. So I think he's not creating this. That makes sense, because if if a team that's extremely relying on set pieces, relying on long balls, trying to put the ball forward and trying to take it on from there, that's the way to play. Definitely, no doubt. That's there's nothing wrong in it, but that's not really bearing a lot of fruit for Bengaluru up till now, because I'm really disappointed in the way they want to play, because down the wings he wants to use Ashik and Udanta, putting in crosses, and I think that hasn't worked. They've shanked a lot of crosses, and I think Chetri for India's talisman, I think it's extremely. It has been few games now that he's been really out of it. We haven't seen much of Chetri. I don't think he's getting the best out of him. And also the new foreign strikers in Selton Silva and Opseth, I don't think they're getting the best out of him either. So I really don't know. I think they have to simplify things now, because if you simplify things for the team, I think that's when they can play their own football. They are extreme. Do you think there's a problem that the players aren't able to express themselves under the coach's instruction? Do you think this is a problem? Because a lot of teams have this problem.
I've been a critic of Carlos Quadrat since last season, when BFC, for the first time in the history really, and it's a short history of course, but didn't fail to lift a trophy in the season and didn't even come close really, realistically speaking. Were nowhere in the league. They were quite lucky to be in the playoffs in the first place. And I think it's more of matter of they've lost a lot of specialized coaches in that team. Carlos Quadrat, for all intentions and purposes, in my eyes, is a set-piece coach. And he's probably the world's best set-piece coach, or one of the best in the world. Maybe in the top 3, top 5 in that category. But he lost a very, very valuable assistant in Gerard Zaragoza, who left the club for, I think it was Saudi Arabia or the Middle East really, for a fantastic opportunity that he himself had. And I think Gerard Zaragoza, the season that BFC won the Indian Super League, he was key to retaining that style that they developed under Albert Roca. He was almost like an evolution of what Roca had built, and he got BFC over the line that season. But ever since his departure, it seems like they don't really have those experts in the camp anymore that probably would go to Carlos and say, this is what you need right now in order to address the problems of no chances from open play, not controlling the ball enough, not keeping the ball in the right areas, and just cluelessness. You mentioned Christian Opseth has looked absolutely out of sorts. It is unbelievable when you think about the similarities between him and Manuel Onwu, who signed last year, both who were signed up as a target man, and there is nothing really that suggests that they're right fit for the team. So, it has to come down to the coach. I can't really say it's a player, because this player is from Norway. He played in the A-League last season. What do you expect from him? He's not going to come and slot into the team and bang in 20 goals already. So when you see, I think the danger signs are when you see Ashik starting at left back and playing more like a winger, and Chetri playing more like a left wing back. That's when the alarm bell should ring in Carlos's head. And he himself has just tweeted right now saying that they've scored 3 goals from throw-ins this season. Last year, I think the highest number of goals was scored from corners. This year, it's throw-ins. Yes, it's great. It's great that you score goals through methods that are not conventional or kind of catch the team out by surprise. But at the same time, if you can't control the game, if you can't keep any foot in the game, your leads don't matter. You can be 2-0 up and you can lose the game. And they've dropped points twice this season. So I think there are huge problems that they need to address as soon as possible, because this is a long issue that has plagued them for the last couple of years.
I think this is a extremely insightful thing that you mentioned. I think about Carlos' assistant, and I think this inside info that you have.
It's not really inside info. He wasn't at the touchline last season.
But how the kind of impact that he's had on the club, retaining Roca's style and the way they have played. That kind of plays out a lot. That's a big factor in the way that coaches kind of manage, because it's not only just the guy on the touchline, or the guy whose name is on the team sheet who's really making the most of the team tick, or most of the plans in place for the team. So I think this is something that probably has affected Carlos, and looking at the bigger picture and how Bengaluru have gone on to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And the lack of chances is reflected very well in the expected points tally based on expected goals. And this was tweeted by Ashish Neki, who you must follow if you follow Indian football. He's one of the founders of KL Now. He mentioned that BFC ranked last, and bottom of the league, if the opposition scored chances against them and BFC converted all their chances. And this shows, clearly, we do recognize that BFC have a good defense led by Juana and Raul Beke and Harmanjot Kabra. But the only thing really saving them now from absolute humiliation is Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, who has performed brilliantly over the past couple of games to really keep them in the game. And just looking at this table really paints a good picture on some of the teams that kind of play a bit more expansive and control the game a lot. You would expect to see the likes of Mumbai City and FC Goa at the top, and for sure, because they create the most chances in the game. But one surprise in this table is ranking in second, which is Hyderabad FC, who you might if you watch the ISL last season, you might be in complete disarray over how they've completely turned around their season under Manuel Roca. Because I mean, for a club that was a bit of a joke at the end of last season, they were conceding goals for fun. To come up with 2 clean sheets and have the most shots for any team, of course, that's Halichar and Nazri's missiles into the seas that are skewing that figure. But to have the chances created, it's a very positive sign for them.
I think Manuel Roca's got somehow got the team very much sorted, that it wasn't so much last season, and I think they have some good players to look forward now. The Aridane Santana leading the line. Yeah, Holicha Nazari has taken 11 shots in 3 games, and I think that's an encouraging sign, because that's a sign of a team that's confident of what they want to do. Because a team that's not confident enough, they're not going to try to take shots from anywhere.
It's not like they have the biggest names in Indian football either. It's more like they've mixed a bit of youth, and they've also added a bit of foreign steel in the defense and the midfield.
Absolutely, and I think relying on players like Ashish Rai, the Mohammad Yasir, Liston Kolako, these kind of players who are talented, who are the kind of they have a lot of tricks up their sleeve, mixed up with the experience that the foreign players bring. I think it's a very good setup for Hyderabad, and they look very promising in that sense, because he's not also relying a lot of foreigners at the same time. So I think Manuel Roca, for him, he's got a side that's not the world beater. I think there's a lot of improvement that he can make, but this is a side that can get points, and that's up till now. That's the key for Hyderabad FC to and there I wouldn't say that's a complete opposite of the last season, but I think this is on the way to being a better team than what they started off from, and I think that's a welcome change for ISL indeed, because Hyderabad FC, with the kind of players they have, I think it's a good team to have. Challenging teams in good for the competition, but who are the kind of players who have stood out for you for Hyderabad FC up till now?
Yeah, I think Aridane Santana has led the line well. He hasn't got the goals that he deserves, but he's got in positions of scoring. In the first game, he missed a header that he probably would have admitted that he should have converted. He could have easily, on his own, probably got them 2 wins out of the 2 draws that they got. But for Hyderabad, I think the biggest signing has to be Subrata Paul. I don't think there's anyone who can overstate his impact on that team, because from the bottoms of Lakshminarayan Kattimani and Kamaljeet Singh, and the absolute disarray that defense had, Adil Khan going to punch Kamaljeet Singh is probably one of the most iconic moments in Indian football. When you have Subrata Roy at the back, who has an error in him but is very, very rare, you just have that confidence in the defense that the goalkeeper is going to stand up. And I think Manuel Roca has believed in that, and he's gone with what is an experienced backline, you must say, and I think that is paying off for him, because so far they haven't conceded too many goals. I think at this point last year they had already conceded around 10 goals. So great work from Hyderabad, and we hope to see what they do tonight, because that is the biggest test of the season so far. They're playing ATK Mohun Bagan, who themselves are coming after a shock loss, you have to say, to Jamshedpur FC. So is it reckoning time for ATK Mohun Bagan, considering the amount of money they've splurged in the transfer market?
I don't think so, because I think Habas is he's extremely certain of his methods, and I'm not sure one blip along the way is gonna make him change the way he wants to play, or he wants ATK to play. But yeah, there are some areas that he's going to look on, and that's the left flank. I think the left flank for ATK is somehow you can say it's kind of paralyzed. And this is no disrespect to Shivashish Bose on the left flank, because I think defensively he's been very solid. He's not known for his attacking prowess, so you can't blame him for not being.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put him up against Susai. I mean, Susai Raj is a brilliant player in that position, and he showed that last year he was the only man who could play in that position, really.
Absolutely, and in terms of crosses, crosses that were extremely essential for ATK to have to be scoring from. I think there's a stark difference in what Prabir Das has kind of brought to the table, and what Shivashish Bose could have has also, because I think Prabir has doubled the number of crosses as that Shivashish has this season, and that's why I think that's one more place where ATK needs to improve. And just looking at the team sheet, it comes from a fan that they want to see expansive football from a team like that, but maybe that's just not how the coach wants to play. And I know he has 2 titles in the bag, so you can't argue with Habas and say no, what you're doing is wrong. So that's just something that ATK Mohun Bagan is not going to change. So you expect them again to probably have a very drab game, to be defensively extremely solid, and scoring that one goal that's going to give them the 3 points. So I don't know what your XG statistics say, but I'm thinking that they should be very high on it, because less chances and more goals, more conversion rate, I think should give them a good healthy XG to back the kind of play that they want, the style of play that the football they want to play. So, and with the strikers that they have, there's no question that ATK Mohun Bagan is the favourite going into this match also.
Yeah, I think Antonio Habas is certainly, or Senor Habas, which I still don't understand why they call him that, is definitely the Jose Mourinho of Indian football. I don't think he'd bat an eyelid on expected goals. I don't think that's his forte. It's more about if he had a statistic called expected clean sheets, I think he would be excited by that. But on that note, it's a roundup of this week's action of the Indian Super League. Do stay tuned though on Sunday for the fans derby, the Kerala Blasters against Bengaluru FC. All started by a bit of banter 2 years ago. I wasn't at the stadium, but it was very hilarious to know that Kerala fans took it upon them very seriously when their homeboy and a player very close to their heart, CK Vineet, participated in banter against the club, and it became known as a rivalry, which it isn't. It's just a bit of fan banter here and there. So stay tuned to this week. We will be back next week, and we will be back before what is another big game on Wednesday between ATK Mohun Bagan and FC Goa. So do stay tuned to the ISL, and make sure you follow us on all our channels across YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Spotify. So have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye from us.